Hi guys, Nishant here. Today we'll be looking at different attributes that can be used in a form. So let's get started. So the first attribute we are going to take a look is value attribute. The value attribute specifies the initial value for an input field. So inside the input field we are going to give value attribute. Inside the double quotes we are going to give its value. So here I'm going to write Nishant. So let's save it and let's take a look at our output. So as you can see, this Nishant here is the initial value. You can modify it, you can completely clear it and write your own value, depends on your choice. So the next attribute we are going to take a look is size attribute. Size attribute specifies the size for the input field. You can change the size using size attribute. So here I'm going to write 30. So this should increase the input field. So as you can see, that increased the input field. One more attribute we are going to take a look in this field is max length attribute. So max length, here I'm going to write 10. So what does max length attribute specifies? So it specifies the maximum allowed length for the input field. So here we have specified 10. So only 10 characters are allowed in this input field. So let's save this and let's take a look. So no more than 10 characters are allowed. So if I enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, it won't let me enter more than 10 elements in this input field. So that is for max length attribute. So the next attribute we are going to take a look is read only attribute. The read only attribute specifies the input field is only read only, means it cannot be changed. So let me show it to you inside last name input field. So here I'm going to give a value. Inside the double quotes I'm going to give Zaveri, that's my last name, and here I'm going to give read only attribute. So let's save it and let's take a look in the output. So as you can see, Zaveri is here, but you cannot change it. It's read only. So let's take a look at another attribute called placeholder attribute. The placeholder attribute specifies a hint that describes the expected value of the input field. The hint is displayed in input field before the user enters a value. Let me show it to you inside password input field. So here I'm going to write placeholder. Inside the double quote I'm going to write enter your password and let's save it and let's take a look. So refreshing it, as you can see, enter your password here is the placeholder value. So if I enter the password, it disappears, and when I clear it, it again show me the hint. So that is placeholder attribute. So we are going to take a look at one more attribute, that is autocomplete attribute. Autocomplete attribute specify whether a form or input field should have autocomplete on or off. When autocomplete is on, the browser automatically completes the input value based on the values that user has entered before. Let me give it an example to you. In this email, when I click D, it gives me dalal.anjali27@gmail.com. That is previously entered email. So I don't want that. So how to get rid of that? So here I'm going to write autocomplete off. Autocomplete, and inside the double quote I'm going to write off. So let's save it and let's check out. So as you can see, now when I write D, it doesn't give me the value that browser has saved. We can enter the new value here. So that is autocomplete. Next attribute is autofocus. The autofocus attribute specifies the input field that should be automatically focused when the page loads. So what does that mean? So I'm going to give autofocus in the website. So it's pretty simple. You just have to write autofocus inside the input field and just save it. So when the page loads, it directly focuses on the website. So you have to fill this form whenever it loads. So whenever the form loads, it will focus on this input field website. So you have to fill it. .google you can give it to any field you want. So that is autofocus attribute. The next attribute we are going to take a look is MinMax attribute. So what is MinMax attribute? The MinMax attribute specifies the minimum and maximum value for an input element. So what does that mean? I'm going to show you what is MinMax attribute inside input type date. Here. So here I am going to write min, inside the double quote I am going to write a date. So here the format is year, month and the date. So here I am going to write 2000, then 12 and then 31. So this is the minimum and this is max. So here I am going to specify 2017, that is the current year, then 01 and here 02. So the minimum is year 2000 and the maximum is year 2017. So this should display the date between 2000 and 2017 and also the specified dates. So let's save it and let's check out our output. So let's refresh it and let's click on this. So this is 2017. So this is 2016. So what happens when I click above here? It directly renders me to the 2000. It does not go above. So that is MinMax attribute. Now we are going to take a look at disabled attribute. The disabled attribute specifies that the input field is disabled. A disabled input field is unusable and unclickable, and its value will not be sent while submitting the form. So I am going to use it in the time input field. So I am just going to write it disabled and let's refresh it. So as you can see, it is now disabled. You can't click it, it's unusable. So the next and the last attribute we are going to take a look is pattern attribute. So I am going to give a pattern inside telephone. So this is a pattern attribute. So what does pattern attribute do? Pattern attribute will help you to figure out the result that you want. So what does that mean? So here I am going to write square bracket. Inside that I am going to write 0 to 9. So what does 0 to 9 specify? 0 to 9 specify the number, the text enter in the input field should be between 0 to 9 and nothing more than that. So I am going to specify a number 10. So you have to enter 10 numbers and that should be between 0 to 9, nothing more than that. So let's save it and let's take a look at output. So now when I click here on telephone, if I enter AAA and when I go there and click on submit, let's see what happens. As you can see, it gives me an error and it says please match the request format. So that is pattern attribute. So next and the most important attribute we are going to take a look is required attribute. So what does that mean? So inside the password I am going to write required attribute. A required attribute specifies that input field must be filled out before submitting the form. So here I am going to write required and let's save it and let's refresh it. So when I click on submit, it gives me an error and says please fill out this field because it is required. So that is required attribute. And one more attribute we are going to take a look here is NoValidate attribute. The NoValidate attribute is a form attribute. Where present, NoValidate specifies that the form should not be validate when submitted. So what does that mean? So here inside the form when I write NoValidate, let's check out what happens. So let's save it and let's refresh it. So let's refresh it. As you can see, all the validation that we have specified are gone. So if I try to submit it, it will get submitted, though we have written a required field here. So if I write required everywhere, like which is required, and here if I write required, so let's save it and let's check out what happens. So let's refresh it and let's submit the form. As you can see, it gets submitted. It doesn't give me any error because we have mentioned NoValidate inside the form tag, and NoValidate is form attribute. So that's all for the attribute. Thank you for watching this video.